Hi, Suman. This is Chris Brandt. Really excited to do this podcast, just trying to figure out how to get it started. I'm thinking about doing an intro where I text your personal AI. What do you think? Awesome.
Hey everybody, this is Chris Brandt here with another FUTR podcast. Not everybody is worried about AI replacing them. In fact, some folks are looking forward to it. Imagine if instead of dealing with all the mundane tasks in your life, you could hand it all off to an AI version of yourself that looks and sounds just like you and would respond the way that you would. Today we're talking with Suman Kanuganti, CEO of Personal.ai. Personal.ai aims to allow you to build an AI that is based on you. So we are going to chat with Suman about how it works and where it's all going. Welcome, Suman.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
I'm excited to have this conversation. We talked earlier, and the stuff you're doing is really interesting. And I think in the world of AI chaos that we currently live in, this is a really, really interesting topic, right? You had a really interesting personal, talking about personal AI, you had an interesting personal story about why you started Personal AI. I was wondering if maybe we could start there and you could explain what your thinking was.
The genesis of the Personal AI was more about, my desire to have an intellectual as well as emotional conversation with a lost mentor, as well as my previous co-founder and my previous partner, my previous company. His name is Larry Bock. He passed away because of pancreatic cancer, right? And he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot in a short period of time. And we had an amazing 18 months of building the company together. And I had this mantra of what would Larry do once he passed away? And always thinking through this, strategic and the thought process of him was really helpful. And over a period of time, I always thought, what? I wish I could talk to Larry's AI. Can there be a situation? Can there be a model that we can algorithmically create that is grounded in one individual person, that is grounded in their facts, in their opinions, in their point of view, stylistic, and their voice? I think was all part of the Genesis story. And, that's the reason why Personal AI exists. And this was back in 2020. So this was before AI was a thing, but our company started off with solving this problem of being able to have access to people, both intellectually as well as emotionally.
I love that. What would Larry do? That's and there's so many people in our lives that we would love to have that ability to just go back and ask. So tell me a little bit about. Because this is the AI it's different than a large language model. You're using a foundational personal language model, right? Is what I understand. And that kind of operates differently than what we're seeing with the ChatGPT large language models and things like that. But how do you get it to be personalized? How do you get it to have your voice or the voice of somebody, you want to replicate?
So the most interesting thing about AI that I've learned is, of course, it's all about the data. Right. For this context of the conversation, we can consider the data as memory. The memory of the internet is a data corpus of the internet, which is technically what a large language model is trained on, such as ChatGPT. So you can think about it as, okay, it has the knowledge of the internet and it has some sort of a collective voice of the internet. The idea of unique voice, unique identity comes with unique memory that individual person possess and the unique facts and preferences and opinions that you possess. To be able to do that, it comes back to the memory of you. So the data that goes into this model is actually not from the internet. It is the data that comes from an individual person. So it's not a pre-trained model as much as you come into the system, you start creating your AI, you tell your AI everything about you in the form of these memories. Your favorite things, your favorite books, how your knowledge, your opinions, your views, your perspectives. And over a period of time, it will not only know who you are and your facts, but it will start to sound like you, both stylistically as well as from the voice and the facts and opinions that you take. So the more memory that you have, the smarter it gets, the more it becomes you.
I do use ChatGPT a lot for, just writing things and, helping it help me spark ideas and things like that. And it's great because it'll come up with things I hadn't thought of.
Yep.
But the challenge I do have is that, like, when it writes something, it writes it in such a different way than I would approach it, that, I've got a lot of rewriting and things to do, because it's like, it tends to be very like, everything's big hype, and it's like, I'm not always wanting to be, that gregarious in my writing, so, like having something that more closely resembles my style would be phenomenal.
If you're using ChatGPT, you can probably try various different prompt techniques and be explicit about how your style is, how the style in the voice you would want it to be for a particular piece of task, right? What we are trying to
could
achieve...
be James Joyce, write it in the style of James Joyce, but I am no James Joyce.
Exactly. Our goal is to be more implicit about it, meaning your model should already know your style, your voice, your memory, your facts. And when you are even ideating with the external world, it is still personalized to your choice. Very simple examples, right? You may have specific food preferences. And generally, when like Suman meets you and like, Chris, where do you want to eat, right? Normally foundationally grounded within your food choices and food preferences. Now you can ask ChatGPT, hey, what are some of favorite food places, specifically around sushi restaurants in New York.
Sushi in New York sounds really good, so I'm down.
But if your memory already knows that your favorite thing is sushi, and there may be some specific things and specific allergies, right? It will be a response that is tailored to you, even though that information is coming from the internet. But then if you do have like specific restaurants in New York that is of favorite to you, then you can add that to the memory as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if I like this restaurant, what are the other restaurants I would like? Or simply straightforward answer, hey, what do you recommend for me to go? Is like, hey, go to this restaurant. This is one of my favorite restaurants. So I think it's just more about like how we live every day. Yeah.
We've heard a lot about large language models, and I think everybody's generally confused about what that means. But we're introducing a new term here yet again. Could you explain to people, like, what does that mean, a foundational personal language model?
Foundational personal language model. So it's essentially like a ensemble model that uses like various different techniques, right? A large language model by definition uses pre-trained set of data and uses generative transformer to create this model. What we do is our model is 120 million parameters instead of like 170 billion parameters of a typical GPT-3 model. And the reason is our purpose is not to learn on the internet of data that exists out there, as much as to learn on individual sets of data.
Right.
And this is also like grounded within one's memory. So the priority for these models is more about the given intent or the given context that is coming to the model. Is it can AI model can be constructed using that data? If not, then I would go consult into a large language model, get the data, and then personalize it. So it's a unique model that is trained on every person, and it is continuously trained based on the memory that is being pushed. And given how small it is very effective, and it is also cheap, if you will, compared to some of the super large compute. My analogy always has been like mainframes versus personal computers. Mainframes had huge machines, and it's almost like shade between all the people, and then you are at the mercy of the application that mainframe supports, and you go in and you type in the document and you get out, right?
Right.
But when the personal computer came, everybody has their own use. Everybody has their own configuration, if you will. So that's kind of the personal AI model. I think one of the misconceptions that exists out there is the more the data, the better the model is. That is true when you are thinking about being able to handle like very general, broad use cases for everybody to understand biochemistry and marketing at the same time.
Right.
It's not true. It's basically it depends on, can the intent that a particular model is getting, can it be addressed by the the model or the data corpus that it possesses. And given now we have large language models, we can create a nice, unique experience on, hey, everything is personal until you don't know that information, and we can consult a large language model and use that information to personalize it further.
If you're going to replicate me, I don't need that much data because I don't know as much as ChatGPT.
Exactly.
So the much smaller model is probably more appropriate. But you mentioned something that's interesting about that, because I know that when you look at like some of the like ChatGPT can only handle so much context before it's kind of got to kind of start over, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing that's different about the foundational personal models is that you're constantly integrating that data back in to the model, right? So it's I want to say in some ways it has a perfect memory of every conversation you have since it's gets started, right?
It's almost like the context is not limited to in that moment task. The context is your long-term memory.
It opens up a lot of more options for different things,
and also like more exploratory, like within your own like individual person. One interesting thing that I observe is, people who come from the ChatGPT world, who are looking for personal AI or personalized AIs, they don't have to think too much about a specific prompt and give all the different variation of the context. Meaning, you probably will still tell, okay, hey, based on your food preferences, hey, what is the food that you like? But you will not say, hey, here are all the food choices and food that you like in one sentence. And then you send it to ChatGPT, you get the response back, and then it is forgotten or it's lost, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty. The prompting idea gets even more simpler, more natural to human.
The prompts are built in because it's based on you.
Exactly, yeah.
We got down a real deep rat hole really quick talking about all the possible uses for this. I love the idea of replacing myself to take care of some of the mundane communication tasks that I have in a day. In fact, I would love to have several of them just sitting in on various meetings. But could you talk about some of the cool use cases that you've seen that you've been part of?
I will give you maybe 3 to 4 different variations, right? One person who is almost like 92 years old has been documenting his entire life from 60s or 70s. It's like 30,000 blocks or something. It's pretty amazing, some of the habits that people possess, which I wish I had. And now he essentially built his entire memory, digital, that were written, that were in previous journals, multiple different notebooks, etc., and created his memory, and the model is up and running.
Wow.
His name is Heman Parekh, and his goal is that he wants to, quote unquote, have his presence for the people around him, for his grandkids, for his kids, and almost like if somebody do need to talk to him, they can still talk to him. Now, his motivation, yes, could be legacy, but he also has like tons of knowledge, tons of political changes that happened through the history, and the specific knowledge that he possesses, and people come to him for specific reasons and unique needs. So I think that's fascinating because he foresaw during the beta times of Personal AI before we even released, and built his entire AI around Personal AI, which is pretty fascinating to me.
Wow.
We are currently focusing on a number of individual brands, or we call them, small business owners, right? If you think about small business owners, not the enterprises, not the huge corporations, but firms where majority of their currency is their personal currency, right? Their income is based on individual brands, right? And the unique knowledge that they possess, consultants, coaches, authors, influencers, thought leaders. If you think about like large language models, right, it is a composition of like all this different data that is available publicly on the internet with consent or without consent. You just basically index it.
Right.
But for these people, their whole core moat is their personal data, personal knowledge, personal moat. For example, Jacob, he is an immigration lawyer, and he gets like thousands and thousands of clients on every year. And he helps people through like various different situations and complex things. And he cannot fulfill the demand that people come to him. Just him taking all these requests, now he created a personal AI of himself, which is his AI version that represents, his personal brand. and all his knowledge. So now it becomes more like a knowledge AI, right? Like people can come and talk, and now almost like doing an interview of Jacob, or Jacob doing an interview of them, and then finally get to the person where, this is something I can help you with.
Yeah.
And then I have parents as well, like parents like literally creating specific views and opinions and their thoughts for their kids, to talk to them. Like, even myself, I personally do that as well. Like rather than my daughter talking to Alexa AI, who I don't have any control on, what it says or when it says and who is controlling behind the scenes, they're already used to talking to devices, talking to AIs, right?
For sure.
Like, so why not, have that, connected experience to the people that you love? I would rather have her talk to Dad AI instead of, an Alexa AI, which I don't have.
Have you done that Alexa integration yet?
I have done the Alexa integration.
Hey, Alexa, talk to Dad.
Yep. I also done the text messaging integration. So I can actually, play the video to you, but the voice is also cloned after me. We haven't released the voice cloning as of yet, but it actually sounds like me.
The gentleman who's like preserving all his memories is sort of a legacy project. I mean, it's very interesting because when you think about what is a person, and are we the sum of our memories, right? And if you can input a lot of memories, into an AI, it does come closer to, this sort of permanent existence potentially, it's really fascinating. And I guess that sort of streams into the metaphysics rat hole that we probably shouldn't go deep down because we'll get lost in that one. But the other thing that really strikes me as interesting too is you talk about people who have a lot of knowledge around a subject, and that they could teach people. And we look at I love like masterclass. That's an interesting where you have like people coming on and sort of teaching how to do things. But there's no reason that couldn't be a personal AI teaching you those things. I mean, so in a way, once you get these things trained, you could utilize instances of these to, as a way to monetize them, right? Or a celebrity, like people always want to talk to a celebrity. I'm sure, how many people would want to have like a personal AI of Taylor Swift that sounds like Taylor Swift that's based on, her memories and things like that to talk to. Just opens up so many interesting areas.
Masterclass education is definitely a very, very interesting area, right? I think it will probably take some time for people to kind of comprehend, I guess, the use cases as well as the methods that need to go into train. But once I take a class, it's almost like the continuity, right? Like, 20 years ago, the professor that I worked with is still in contact with me. But, I would normally would wish I can have like easy access, to her rather than, me trying to email her or text her and hoping she will get back to me or even remembers me for that matter, right? So it's about like this like continuity that exists. You finish the course and then you continue communicating or staying in touch with that professor, with that, person for a long period of time, right? It's like, oh yeah, I do remember this, but hang on. In current scenario, it's like, okay, Yuval Harari in Homo Sapiens book said something about this concept. Oh, I will never be able to find that remotely, even with all the search technologies that exist. But rather, if I do have Yuval Harari's authentic AI, that then combined with like, okay, my personal understanding of things, I could probably get to that, comment or thought process much faster.
Yeah, it can take parasocial relationships to a whole new level. the possibilities here are so interesting. And it brings about a lot of really interesting scenarios too, because I would imagine if you had somebody's, personal AI that you're conversing with, and over time, those conversations are getting reintegrated back into the personal AI, you're going to have personality drift. I guess is the best way to sort of describe it. So at some point, you're going to have to get a 2.0 that has all the latest personality features added to it.
If indeed, to your original point, if who you are is the sum total of all your experiences in the past or sum total of all your memories in the past, it may be also be anchored. Like the person who you are today or the behavior that you are expressing today may be, is influenced heavily with what happened in the past month or yesterday or last week, right?
Traumatic
So,
event.
yeah, traumatic event. Yeah, talk to me about it. So the memory that we built is time-bound memory. So in other words, it favors the recency in sort of this personality and the facts and the opinions. So even the knowledge, right? Like what you think about or how you talk about AI, like maybe 2 years ago, is probably likely, it's slightly different from what it is right now. Even, the use cases that I was talking to about personal AI to an investor or in a podcast, like, 2 years ago is likely different from what it is right now, right? So it does keep track of that additional dimension of it. And that's what personal AI makes it very personal, because it's also time bound.
The kind of metaphysical, like kind of conversations that sort of can come into this too, because, as this AI evolves and becomes more intelligent, the value of it grows, and the way it integrates within your life, could lead to just different ways of thinking about how AI is governed and how AI is used, and the value of AI. I mean, it just really, I didn't think we were going to be here yet, I guess. And I didn't think I would have to think about these things as much, but now it's really opening up some really philosophical kind of conversations, especially when you are basing it on an individual.
So the way I think about it is, most like people, we are very much favorable to getting things done faster and instant gratification. So we end up like using, the tools and the services to get that log return, to get that task done. It's more like a service, right? We use most of the AI like a service. Like you go to Amazon, you use Amazon's AI to recommend you a product, and you buy that thing and you get out.
Yeah.
The thing about personal AI is it's the mindset of creating an asset. It's almost like investing in yourself.
Right.
The more memory that you build, the more valuable your asset becomes. And we are giving that ownership of the asset to you. So it's not just about the physical assets anymore. I tend to feel for the first time I have a mechanism to create a digital asset that is mine, that is not, spliced and diced and rented to multiple different platforms. Having conversations in one platform, posting in one other platform, blogs in one other platform, audio in one other platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The more memory it grows, the more it becomes valuable to you, and you would eventually carry this asset into your trust, and you share with family and friends, and it lives forever. It's like a living asset of you.
I think to some people this might be kind of a scary idea. That they're putting all their information into this virtual entity, and I mean, can you speak to like what are the kind of privacy and security implications?
I always say like privacy is subtly different from security. I guess we normally tend to combine those two things. So from a security standpoint, yes, it is secure as it is, your Google services or Apple services. But when it comes down to privacy, from my perspective, privacy comes with control. Like what kind of control that you have on your data,
right?
On what data is going in and where is it going to,
right?
Traditionally, I mean, Internet 1.0 or 2.0, if you will, we are the contributors of data to the platforms to get a service out of it. That means you don't have control over your data and how it is used or how it is used for other ads. For me, the control is more about, do you own the data? Do you own the model? Do you have controls to be able to do that? And do you have a choice, when to use the platform, how to use the platform, and how not to use the platform, right? And that's the route we have chosen. We, if you go to our terms of service, it is pretty clear that you get to keep the data. The data will not be used for any other purpose other than training your model. Eventually, in the future, when we are able to fulfill our roadmap, you can download the model and run it on a device, right? So you don't have to keep it on the cloud per se. You are living in a device that is at your home. So I think, those requires like some development, but eventually, given how small and how efficient these models are, that is the path that we have chosen to do.
It is such an fast evolving area of technology, and it's one of those things that I don't think I've seen anything this impactful in technology, maybe in my entire career, but certainly not in a very long time. It has so many broad-reaching implications, and it's really rapidly getting integrated into everything. And I do think there's parts of it that are scary in that regard, because I don't think a lot of good thought is always going into where it's being applied and how it's being applied. But I do love the idea of like being able to own and control your own data, especially when it's something as personalized as this. There are going to be people who are going to be utilizing personalized AIs that are, going to, we talk about that concept of post-humanism. Like what does it look like when, we kind of approach the singularity and, we're integrated with machines and things like that. But my contention has always been that we have already passed that point, because the second we started sticking an iPhone in our pocket with Google on it, I don't remember anything anymore. I don't have no idea what anybody's address is. I have idea what anybody's phone number is. I don't know how to, get anywhere. I don't know, I just pull that down as I need it. And it's an extension of my brain. And I think that's why when you don't have your phone with you, sometimes it's really nerve-wracking, right? Because it's like you just got a lobotomy.
Yeah.
This is this on steroids.
One thing I tend to think is this idea of technology in our lives is always going to be a foundation.
Yeah.
And then the experiences that we create or we gather over a period of time will be built on top of the technology. In other words, how much of our technology will suck some of the human traits that we used to have, in the past life, and take that with generations and generations. We will create and we will experience things on top of the technology. Like we were already talking about my 5-year-old, like being able to talk to an AI, right? Yeah. So that means, her experiences and her creations will be built on top of those foundational technology that exists as she growing up. When I was growing up, our technology was like a bicycle, a scooter, and maybe a car, when I was like 22 years old. I grew up in India. So that's the level of technology. It's like, and if my bicycle broke down, it's like, oh, I'm terrified because I cannot go to school. I cannot get things, right? Yeah, you have to figure out like how to walk. So I think we can like make a statement, or we can, think like many different things that happen in the history. And we are, these cycles of technology is happening more and more faster, which I think is okay, because I think humans are also like trying to keep up with the adapting of the technology. So as long as we have this open mind that we do not fear technology, we embrace it and we build on top of the technology, yes, the shifts will happen. The economy will change. The jobs will change. But eventually, humanity will always be built on top of the foundational technology that exists for generations.
In order to participate in the future, you're going to have to utilize some of these tools. Because I think about it in terms of like, right now, technology, like for security products, we're seeing AI integrated into basically every security product, right? And part of that is because one, humans can't react fast enough to deal with things, but humans can't also parse the amount of data that's necessary to just understand what's happening in any given moment. And I think that's analogous to some of the things that are happening in our lives. And there's so much information, so much data coming at us that our brain can't parse it all.
Exactly.
And at some point, we're going to have something that's doing a lot of that lifting for us, so that we can, stay connected to everything that's happening. Because I believe that the pace of technological change is like, I think our ability to adapt to change is sort of linear, whereas the pace of technological change, especially when you introduce artificial intelligence, that's sort of a multiplier factor on that, is sort of this Malthusian curve that just, skyrockets to the sky, while we're just kind of, putting along on this very linear path that we're on. And unless we do something to, get us caught up, we're going to fall behind, right?
Well, what I think will happen is when the technology picks up, it picks up rapidly. And the adoption for humans is going to be linear. But then the technology cycle will also start plateauing, and then humans will catch up. And then there is the next wave. It's almost like a connecting S curves that is happening, whereas human adoption is going probably like a linear. When there is a gap, that's where the changes are happening, the shifts are happening, the laws are changing, the jobs are changing. We are having these conversations in the podcast. Same thing happened with the internet, and then happened with mobile phones, and then happened with like communications, right? Like now my mom and dad uses internet and social media like everybody else as well. But for initially they were like, oh, I don't know what is going on. Like, what is Google? I remember my dad asking me, and now he asked me like, what is AI, right? But eventually I think that linear curve, and then once AI start to plateau and gets integrated, we will catch up, and then there'll be the next curve, which is robotics and synthetic humans. And
what's next for personal AI? What's next on your radar, your roadmap here?
Right now, it's all about going to market, like getting personal AI in the hands of as many people as possible, and educating the market that this is a mechanism to take control of AI into your hands. Put it to your benefit. Current use cases expand into people like replicating themselves to represent in everyday communications. We do have these modes of like copilot as well as autopilot. In our definition, copilot is human in the loop, meaning AI will draft messages for you if you send me a message, and then I can review it and send it to Chris, even though it sounds like me. And for some situations where it's more like team engagement or audience engagement or community who would benefit from my knowledge or interacting with me, that could be autopilot, where AI automatically responds to a person. But all these conversations are then like going into this reinforcement learning continuously. So if you do ask me a question that is not in my memory, I can basically address it and then add it into the memory as well immediately. So there is this like the continuity nature to it. So it's not only investing time in just creating your initial model, but like an ongoing basis, you are reinforcing a factor, an opinion, or a thought, and continuously building this asset for yourself for every day. So from everyday communication, text messages to emails to people talking to you, having conversations, those are all the current possibilities. We have native applications such as iPhone app, Android app is coming out. There is desktop and mobile applications as well. There is API. So think about this API as an IP address to you. So technically, you have your own server, and for data output and data input. So people are discovering it. It's a unique, different product than most exists out there because it's not a pre-trained model.
Right.
But we have integrated like large language models as well into personal AI. So people come in, at least will have like the base public knowledge, like public information, and now they can start building their personal AI. That's kind of where we are, and our goal is to make this an asset for every person and make it as cost effective and as cheap as possible. So that way, it's not just for the richest, not just for Taylor Swift, like you mentioned, right? I think large language models will take care of Taylor Swift. I think our goal is to get the 80% of people, where their knowledge, may not be widely popular, but they are still important to humanity overall and to people around them.
If people want to get started with, you do have a free version of this that people can get started with, right? And
right.
then there's different tiers.
The system functions with the memory. There is a free version. You can think about free version as like a consumer experience where you can add pretty much your hobbies, your food preferences, your personal preferences, your book preferences, anything that you would think. And there is a limit to the memory. And that's all free. So that's where you get the experience of how this model like starts turning it to sound like you for some of the personal preferences. And then as you increase the memory, then it goes into paid subscriptions of $15 and $40. And even we have custom solutions for small business and major brands where they have lots and lots of data. But they get unlimited memory, at $40 per month, and you can create like multiple different personas. So think about it as like, okay, do it yourself model, which is essentially everything is self-service and it's pretty easy. You basically put a message and add a message as a memory, or your conversations as a memory, and the model will start learning. So they can try it out. There are a whole bunch of other AIs in the Discover tab that we are starting to like give people to publish their own AIs into Discover as well. But people can experience, understand, add their memory, and then figure out like, okay, what is their purpose? And we have a training course for helping people, get to their eventual goal as well.
If you just go to Personal.ai, you can get access to that and get started, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody go and make your own personal AI. I love that.
Yeah. And you can obviously come and talk to me as well. s.personal.ai is my personal brand domain. So if you come there, it's like me plus my AI, depending on if I put you in Copilot or Autopilot, meaning you can talk to my AI directly, or you just talk to me and then, I use my AI to assist me in that moment to, quick respond to you, faster responses to you.
So if you're really eager to talk to Suman, get on s.personal AI and have a chat with him. And it may or may not be him, but who knows? This is such cool stuff. And I would love to talk to you for a week about all the, philosophical directions this could go. It's very cool technology. It's a cool thing. I'm really excited to see where this goes and where you go with this. So, keep up the good work. Keep me posted. And thanks so much for being on.
Thanks a lot, Chris. It was wonderful talking to you as always. Had wonderful conversation so far. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you could, give us a like, think about subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.